Okay, this is attempt like number 5 to try to do some narration with Zoom. I hope I can get this to work. This is chapter 11 from Mason, Sexual Reproduction and Meiosis. Like tends to beget like, which means that offspring resemble their parents. And of course, the physical appearance, which is known as the phenotype, comes from the genetic combination, which is known as the genotype. So phenotype is largely shaped, though not entirely shaped, by genotype. And this is because, and children resemble their parents, offspring resemble their parents, because gametes contain only one copy of each chromosome, and one copy of each chromosome came from each parent. So if you were looking at a human being's chromosome 5, say, for example, they're going to have chromosome 5 in a homologous pair. One chromosome 5 came from mom, one chromosome 5 came from dad, and so on and so forth with the rest of the chromosomes. So you have diploid organisms and haploid organisms, and it's important to remember humans, like all animals, are diploids, which means 2 copies of every gene. These are eukaryotes, so the chromosomes are going to be in pairs. These are called homologous pairs. And there are 2 copies of every gene, and this will be important later on in the section on genetic inheritance. Now, there are some organisms that are haploid. These are mostly the fungi, things like molds and mushrooms, and also some of the algae. We're going to mostly focus on diploid organisms simply because that's what most people taking this class are going to wind up being interested in, whether it's humans, people going into the medical field, or animals, people going into zoology, veterinary medicine, that kind of thing, or plants, people going into botany. Now, plants have the weird little quirk that some of them are actually what we call polyploid. I'll talk about that later on if I have time. Well, many organisms, of course, are capable of reproducing asexually. That means they only have one parent. There's no genetic recombination that takes place. The offspring is an exact clone of the parent. And so there's relatively little genetic diversity in the species. And I kind of gave my lecture before break about the importance of genetic diversity, but some organisms still do it this way. And again, the examples you see here are the yeasts, and this is a nice spider plant. All of those little spiders hanging off of it are individual new plants. And then you have things like hydras, which can bud off new individuals. Hydras are a small invertebrate animal. Now, what we're going to be mainly focusing on in this chapter is sexual reproduction. This is where you have 2 parents. There's genetic recombination. In order for that to happen, you have to have gametes. Gametes are going to be haploid. That means they're going to each have 1 copy of every gene, so that when you combine gamete plus gamete makes diploid. Haploid plus haploid makes diploid. And the way the gametes are produced in animals is through the process of meiosis. Now, you've already seen this animal life cycle where the only haploid stage here are the gametes. You've got diploid adults, you've got diploid baby, diploid zygote. The only haploid stage is the gametes. And this is a little bit more sophisticated version taken from your textbook, again, showing the reproductive tissues where meiosis can take place, noting that the only haploid cells in the animal life cycle are going to be the sperm and the egg. When they combine to make a zygote and to produce a baby, you're going to get diploids back. Zygotes are diploid. The zygote is the fusion of the egg and the sperm. So, important to remember, and like I said in class, it's unfortunate meiosis and mitosis are named as they are because they're very difficult. It's easy for students to confuse them. Mitosis makes identical cells. You get 2 cells out of it. This is like what bacteria do to make more bacteria. Meiosis makes 4 cells. They're haploid, and they're going to have a different mixture of chromosomes. So cells that are produced by meiosis are going to be different from one another. They're all going to have 1 set of the genes, but which variant, known as alleles of the genes they have, will differ. There are also some unusual features to meiosis. I will try to attack that in the next section that I do. This was just a test here. So let me see